Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cyber Revolution podcast. Thanks for joining us yet again. I'm Adam Hewitt, the CEO of Cyber Revolution, and today I'm joined by an alumni student of ours, Gayathri. Gayathri, how are you?
I'm good, Adam. Thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us for a second time. You're actually one of our repeat guests. You were on over 3 years ago now, back in 2021. We talked about how you were studying, which we're going to get into in this conversation. You just landed a role in the industry. Now it's really cool to have you on 3 years later to talk about what's happened in your life over the past 3 years, which is going to be super interesting. Before we get into that, I want to give our new listeners of the podcast a bit of an overview of who this podcast is for, whether you're going to be interested in it or not. And so Cyber Revolution, we are Australia's only dedicated cybersecurity training and placement company. So we help people land their first job in cybersecurity. And the reason we're, doing this podcast is to really break down some of the common misconceptions and barriers about cybersecurity. Changing careers into cyber can be super overwhelming. And we want to be able to educate and inform people who are interested in getting into this amazing industry. Okay, so if that sounds interesting, if that resonates with you, if you're interested to learn more about the cyberspace and how you can get a job and transition careers, then keep listening. All right, Gayathri, let's get into it. Now, as I mentioned before, it's been 3 years. Back in April 2021, when we first started having that conversation, and I think you joined us back in 2020 as a
Yeah.
student. So maybe give everyone a little bit of a recap of what was going on at that stage in your life and I guess why you decided to join Cyber Revolution.
Yeah. So in 2020, 2021, there was the height of COVID, and I was still an international student back then. I was doing most of my courses online. I was doing my bachelor's of IT with Monash University at that point, and I was in my final year of my bachelor's. And I was thinking, maybe I should get ahead. Maybe I should look into starting new courses just to, have an extra footing through the door. So yeah, I was just scouring the internet looking for courses to start, and that's when I came across Cyber Revolution through Facebook. And yeah, and I decided, why not just give it a go? Well, I approached Adam, and yeah, that's when I decided to jump on the Cyber Revolution.
Amazing. And why was it? What was the main reason you decided to join Cyber Revolution as opposed to all of the other training organizations out there?
Well, I think it was the amount of training that was provided. I think it was a lot more smooth in that process. Sometimes with different courses, the trainings can be very difficult to follow. But with Cyber Revolution, I had a sneak peek, and I saw that the trainings were pretty good, and they kind of brought you through step by step with like practicals and tutorials that it really helps someone even without like that much knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. As you said, you were a young international student that has
Yes.
about to come to the completion of your degree. A lot of people probably are thinking at that stage, oh, my studies are done. I'm done with it. I'm over studying. I don't want to continue doing more. But you've had the foresight to go, you know what? I need to differentiate myself from other people and get extra certifications. Like, what was it about the CompTIA certificates? Or actually, before asking that question, did you feel the same way? Were you like, not really wanting to do extra additional certifications after you'd done your degree, but you just knew it was something that you had to do?
Initially, I did think that, maybe just a bachelor's would have been enough, but after kind of learning more about the industry and how it's evolving, I kind of figured like, it would be much better if I were to have like a certification just to, give me a head start, with competing with like other students as well,
Yep.
who during the industry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you find it can be tougher sometimes for international students as well, like, to break into that industry? Were you feeling that kind of similar challenge?
Yeah, I did feel that kind of challenge. Well, coming from an international background, especially when it comes to security, it can be a little bit sensitive where the data that you deal with might be a bit more sensitive
Mhm.
to the country itself. So it might be a little bit harder for you to kind of show that you're a trusted person and, you have the qualifications, the skills, and you're credible enough to, get a job in security. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. So you need to, I guess, work a little bit harder, right? Students in general have to, But as you said,
Yeah.
international students, in order to land a role in the industry, have to kind of maybe differentiate themselves from just a bachelor's degree. You've got to get some extra certifications. All right, great. I remember having the chat with you actually years and years ago. You really
Yeah.
wanted to do it. You're super driven, and you actually reached out to I think your parents to help fund the program for you. It must have been really comforting knowing that you had their support with, doing additional studies as well.
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful to have my parents being supportive about it.
Yeah.
At that time, if it weren't for COVID, I would have done it myself. I would have gone out, gotten a job, and tried to fund it for myself because I just think a certification would have really given me that extra edge, to get a job in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it has, right? And so 3 years
That.
ago, you landed your first role. So tell us a little bit more about that process, how and when you landed that role, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about the last 3 years.
Yeah, so actually, straight out of graduation, I managed to get an opportunity as well, the title is software developer, but I was doing more of a DevOps engineer kind of role. And I was with Hanson Technologies, and I dealt with mostly the infrastructure of the company, a lot of networking, a lot of security, a lot of CI/CD pipelines, Python, Bash scripting, all that.
Yep.
And then from there, I worked there for maybe a year or so, and then I moved in with REA Group as a systems engineer. Another role that has a lot to do with infrastructure and security as well. Dealt with a lot of Cisco, a lot of policies, and then group data policies. After that, I moved into Catapult Sports, the sports tech company, also as a DevOps engineer. So I think you can see the running trend. I've
Yeah.
been staying within the infrastructure and security space for quite a while.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's where I am.
Amazing. And so you would have seen, so you got a vast amount of experience in the infrastructure and the security infrastructure specifically. Did you enjoy that type of work?
I definitely did. Compared to programming, I think my knowledge in networking and infrastructure was a lot more better and a lot more solid.
Yep.
And with CompTIA as well, with the security aspect, I was able to provide and suggest a lot of tools and maybe practices for the companies as well to use. So yeah, that was really good.
Okay, so you found that the CompTIA certifications that you did with us were very relevant in the security role that you were doing at the time?
Yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of the practices and the tutorials I found were pretty similar to what was happening in real life. So, I felt like it was directly applicable to most of what I did in my companies. Yeah.
That's really good to hear, because that's what we're trying to do for those listening in. We have live practice labs for our students to be able to not only just understand the theory, but then implement that theory on a live lab. And we're trying to simulate the real world environment and what you're going to experience in the industry. So it's good to hear that that's happening.
Yeah.
All right. And so walk us through it a little bit. And you might have to break it down slightly in layman's terms for some of the listeners as well. Like, what specifically was the security aspect to your job?
Ooh, okay. So the security aspect would be more so implementing safe and good practices. Making sure that your passwords are not revealed, making sure that you're using, proper tools to make sure that sensitive data are not exposed to the general public. And also making sure that there is a certain level of redundancies when it comes to infrastructure at least. So, it's kind of like layers upon layers of making sure that there's extra protection around the infrastructure. Yeah. So basically that's basically what I did with my companies. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm really interested to learn over the past 3 years. So from when you got into the industry to where we are now,
Yeah.
you've been exposed to how important, safe practices are within this space. How have you seen the development of cybersecurity in Australia over the past 3 years? If you can remember where we were 3 years ago and what we're doing now, how do you see that progressing? And I guess, have you seen the importance of safe cybersecurity practice increase over the last 3 years?
So, I mean, over the past few years, I'm sure many people would have known that there's been quite a few cybersecurity attacks that's been happening especially with Australian bodies. So I think Australia is definitely catching up with in terms of cybersecurity and placing the importance and the resources with cybersecurity. It's definitely a growing field. It's I don't think it'll be stopping anytime soon. it's definitely growing, and yeah, I think it's changing in a really fast pace as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess you would have seen as well firsthand the need for more professionals in the industry. Did you see that, like a lack of talent in the space?
Yeah, there was a lack of talent. A lot of companies right now, they're trying as much as they can to get seniors involved as well. So, like, in managerial positions, even entry level positions, junior positions. There's a lot of job opportunities that are coming up right now, especially with DevOps, infrastructure, and security. They're all kind of like coming together and hand in hand to kind
Mm.
of make things work. So, I've seen a lot of job opportunities coming through. Yeah.
And as you said, I think there's only going to be more and more in the future because Australia, you would have experienced this over the last 3 years, but we were, and we still are, a few years behind the rest of the world when it comes to our cyber resilience as a country. But the good news is we are the most progressive country in the world. So we're catching up. We're getting
Yeah.
where we want to be. And the goal for the Australian government is that we're actually, world leaders in this space. So we do have a lot of work to go, but we just need more people like yourself to enter this industry, right? Okay. On that, like for you, what are some of your short-term goals in this industry?
Short term goals, I would say, well, within my company at least, I would like to make sure that, we're reducing the amount of threats that are coming in, having better incident response, having better monitoring, alerting systems, kind of preventing before it even happens as much as possible. So I feel like prevention is the best medicine.
Mhm.
And also, even if incidents do happen, because, the humans, we do make mistakes and stuff. So even if incidents were to actually happen, the impact would be significantly reduced with, good practices and good tools put in place. So yeah, I think that's one of my short-term goals with what I'm doing right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And long-term goals. What about, I guess, for the next, you know, 2 to 5 years? Talk us through that.
Well, the next 2 to 5 years, actually, I've been influenced by some of the people in my personal life. So I've been going for a lot of like hackathons, and something that's piqued my interest would be medical technology and how in hospitals and like such government bodies, cybersecurity might not be at the top of the priority list yet, but it would be a good place to go into to kind of drive that notion in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really want to try to go into medical technology. This hospital, there's a lot of sensitive data to do with patients, to do with other entities. So, yeah, that's kind of where I want to go into, where I see myself going into in the next 5 years at least. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a bit of a passion space for you, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a huge industry, right? Like the health
Mm.
industry is one that is not only a massive industry, but it is super vulnerable,
It
and one
is.
targeted a lot, unfortunately, by
Yeah.
so more
Yeah.
people we can get in that space, the better.
Yep. Definitely. Absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, we'll have you on again in 3 years' time, and no doubt we'll be having that conversation about the medical industry and how
Yeah.
you help in that
For sure. I hope so. Yeah.
job. Okay, and so for this just doesn't have to be for our international students, right? Because as I said before, it can be a little bit more difficult for international students, which is why they need more support, more assistance, more opportunities. But anyone really looking to get into the industry, I think, is going to gain a lot of insight in from this conversation.
Yeah.
Specifically for international students, what would be your top 3 tips right now for someone that, who's in that space? They might be studying, they might have finished their studies, and they want to get into cybersecurity. What would be your 3 top tips?
Three top tips. I think the first would be to network. Make sure that you're networking with people, you're getting to know people, whether it's in the personal or in the professional setting. Make sure you're getting to know people, what's going on, what they're doing. So that's my very first tip. Second tip is to definitely upskill yourself constantly. Like consistently upskilling yourself is going to make sure that you're at the topmost priority when people are trying to look for jobs and recruiters are coming in to try to look for people. So making sure that you have the relevant skills, making sure that you're up to date, it'll give you a lot of advantage. Third tip, I would say, as much as possible, follow your passions. And if you're really into cybersecurity, there are a lot of resources available online. And also, with Cyber Revolution, I would say, as much as possible, make sure that you're really using such resources and you're getting like proper certifications to make sure that you're credible and to show that, I have these skills, I'm going to be suitable for you. I'm going to be able to help you. So,
Yep.
yeah.
All three very valid points. And if I can break them down, networking, especially face to face now, we can do that, right? When you landed your role, unfortunately, in the middle of lockdown, right? So you couldn't do that
Yeah.
stuff. But now events are now happening all of the time. There's actually one of Australia's largest cybersecurity events happening next month, 26th, 27th, 28th of November in Melbourne. It's called CyberCon. It's an ASA event. All of our students, when they become a student of Cyber Revolution, get free memberships to ASA. Okay. And so they provide online events, they provide mentoring, they provide face to face events. And so I think it's super important that you mention that. Get to these events and meet industry, people of influence is really, really important. The second one is, your skills. You need to constantly show employers that you are upskilling because cybersecurity is a lifelong learning journey. You have to always upskill. And so if you've shown a employer that you're always doing that, you're not just kind of like, oh, I've got my degree, I'm just going to sit here and, I've already got the skills. No, it's training is something you keep doing. It's not something that you've done. And then the final thing you mentioned as well was getting the right certifications. All right. So you mentioned earlier in this chat that your CompTIA certificates, they're your industry certifications. These are created by industry experts. I had on the podcast recently Dr. James Stanger, he's been at CompTIA for 25 years and helps curate that content. So it's built by specialists in the space. And it helps you get these hands-on practical skills. It prepares you for the industry, and employers know that. So they've got a lot more confidence knowing, hey, Gayathri's actually done this stuff before in a simulated lab. I trust that she's going to have the skills when she needs to bring them out, in the
Yeah.
professional workplace as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
three super valid points. Amazing. Thanks, Gayathri. I know we're running a little bit over time now, but thank you so much for spending the time to have a chat. You did mention this earlier before we press record that you just got off a flight from late last night from Singapore. So you're probably a little
Yeah.
bit jet lagged. Thank you so much for taking the time in this morning to have this conversation. I think it's going to inspire a lot of people wanting to get into the cybersecurity industry. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Adam. It's really nice, having this conversation, and I'm glad I was able to help, even if it's just a little bit. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'm going to hold you to it. We're going to have you on in a few more years when you're taking
Yep.
the medical industry by storm. All right, everyone, if you did enjoy this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe. Keep the suggestions coming through in the comment section about what you'd like to have topic covered next as well. If you want to learn more about our job placement program that Gayathri's gone through, all you need to do is head to cyberrevolution.com.au and you can leave your details there and someone from the team will be in touch. Thanks for listening.